News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline Recording. My guest this evening is Senior DIG, retired Priyantha Jayakody, man with several years of expertise at all levels of the police force in Sri Lanka. And he's agreed to be our guest this evening. Very good evening to you, DIG, and welcome.
Very good evening, Faraz.
Thank you very much for being on Newsline, even though it's recording today. But Sri Lanka, today is, of course, the about the 32nd anniversary of the death of the People's President, Ranasinghe Premadasa, and an event that I suppose most Sri Lankans would be ashamed of, the way in which a leader's life was snuffed out. And we, of course, here at the network remember President Ranasinghe Premadasa pretty fondly, and in my view, a real people's president. But DIG Priyantha, it's almost appropriate that we speak about the assassination of President Premadasa, because that happened back in 1991. We had this emergency provisions leading to what is known as the Prevention of Terrorism Act.
Yes.
So even with that in place for a full 12 years, at the time that President Premadasa's life was snuffed out, his life couldn't have been saved.
Yeah, usually.
Do we need any laws?
Yes, usually for us, the law is only one component of the curbing the terrorism. You need, with law only you can't do this.
Right.
To curbing the terrorism, you need a lot of other elements.
Like?
That means the political solution, the military acts, and there are so many items. In this case, in this Prevention of Terrorist Act, introduced to Sri Lanka during the Jayarjavardhana regime in 1979.
Yeah.
At the very inception of the Tamil separate terrorism started by the LTTE and all other Tamil groups. And this was introduced as a temporary provision act.
Yeah.
But after 44 years, still this law is remaining. Because that is the history of our Prevention of Terrorist Act.
Yeah.
But after the war ended in 2009, and especially after electing Mr. Maithripala Sirisena as the president of this country and the Yahapalana regime, the government has given the assurance to the international community for suspending this Prevention of Terrorist Act law. And actually they have given a moratorium. And they have appointed the group of law expertise to draft a new bill called CTA, Counter Terrorist Act.
Yeah. That
happened in 2018. After 2019, the East attack, everything stands still, and Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa became a president of this country, and he totally forgot about the CTA bill and introduced this. Now the bill what we got it as a law, as an Anti-Terrorist Act. This is the history of this ATA.
But do we need anti-terrorism laws?
Yes. When you are comparing with the other countries like even the British, UK and India, everywhere, actually there's no doubt for the requirement of the terrorism law, because when you are comparing with the crime, ordinary crime and the crime related to the terrorism, it is little difference. And this, especially the terrorism crimes, are much complicated, and it was actually with a group of people with there's a motivation aspect is there. And the way they handle, and especially the international terrorism, have the links to curb everything you can't do it with the normal law. That is why special provisions of the law introduced for not only the Sri Lanka, the other countries also. Actually, when you are comparing the 1979 our PTA, it can be described as a carbon copy of the Terrorist Act available at that time in the island to curb the IRA. And you need, there's no doubt you need a separate law, but it should be very systematically drafted. It should not, there should be a distinction between the terrorists and the ordinary people.
You say that, you say, and I hear you, and our audience hears you, that anti-terror laws are in force all over the world.
Yes.
Including the main superpowers, the United States, and then also in the other powers like in the UK and so on.
Yes.
We have these laws, even India has it. But you see, when we're talking about the need for laws, we then say, well, all these other countries have it, and so, it must be a good thing, so we'll have it. But then, when others talk about accountability and reconciliation and so on, then they say, no, we don't need any investigators from outside. This is a homegrown thing. We will sort it out. But nothing, of course, ever gets sorted out. How do you respond to that sort of double standard?
No, for us, we can't forget that we have been the victimized in two ways of terrorism.
Yeah.
During the Liberation Tiger movement, for 30 years, we got penalized for that terrorism, and after that, even after the Easter bomb attack, we got second time penalized for this IS terrorism.
Yeah.
In that case, my personal opinion is we should have to have a very strong law to curb terrorism, but it should not harmful to others. Because there should be a distinction between the terrorism and the ordinary thing. The main problem in the current bill is the definition given for this terrorist act is very wide. wide. That means if you because as an example, for a serious assault, extortions, even that type of crimes can be interpreted as the terrorist act. And especially because under this special law, normally we are separating the judicial system from this type. Then because of this, the ordinary, that means the executive arm is having all the powers, semi-judicial powers, like for the detention. Now under this new act, if any person have to detain for 90 days, he can be detained by the authority of the senior DIG of the police. And earlier it was for the Ministry of Defence. Now under this new bill, it has been brought down up to the Deputy Inspector General. Then our question is whether our system is eligible to get such a big responsibility for retraining the person's freedom for long periods such as 90 days.
I hear that, but there are so many things about this that I think that the general public, who are now, thanks to the events during the Aragalaya and the events after the Aragalaya with the election of the new president, the appointment of the new president by members of parliament, it leaves me rather confused, because on the one hand we say we need this, on the other side the constitution says that to be able to express ourselves freely, even if that means having an alternative opinion, a dissenting opinion, now seems to be fraught with grave danger, because the government did use provisions of the PTA to try and control this. So it appears that the people at every turn are being stymied, not only when the people are going to buy a kilo of rice or a kilo of onions or some essential, where it is either not there or it's so priced out of its way, inconveniencing, but also when they are trying to give their differing opinion and trying to protest about it because they've got no other way of doing it. So isn't that unfair to use the PTA on them?
Yes, that is our questions also, because our opinion, our request is because of the very wide meaning of the wide interpretation for terrorism and the Terrorist Act, there should be a judicial intervention at the very first beginning, rather than giving that authority to the police to detain a person for 90 days. That is the main thing. That is the main request the order the people made, because if there is a judicial intervention, it can be seen in judicial angle under the judicial review. Because now we have been, you can notice this, the identical case is the Hijaz Hizbullah's case. He was remanded for such a long period. Because under this, the power of this Act, Anti-Terrorist Bill, what gazetted, there is no judicial intervention until the first 90 days. Only thing, the magistrate can visit the place of detention and to see the person about his well-being. That is the only, but even that he has no authority to intervene at any level. But he can see the well-being of the person.
But that is dangerous.
Yeah, no. For us, my question is, now usually the magistrate visited the place of detention and checked whether he has been tortured or not. But there are things called the physical torture and the mental torture.
Indeed.
When you are keeping a person for 90 days without going before the court of law, see the mental pressure on him. These things, this situation can be described as the mental torture. Though it's not a physical torture, the torture of mentality is very high degree. And our humble request at the very first beginning, rather than giving this opportunity to the Deputy Inspector General of Police, why can't they introduce the judicial intervention? Let Judge 2 or the magistrate, whoever it is, to decide whether this act is a terrorist act or ordinary act they convert as a terrorist. Now, I can give my personal experience during my police career. During this height of the LTT time, some people who were arrested for housebreaking charges, for the series of housebreaking, those days some officers have to apply. We are strongly suspecting the money what they have earned through these activities, whether they have pumped into the LTT or the terrorist activities. Hence, they ask for a detention order for a long time, 90 days or whatever it is. And after that, when the suspects are produced in the magistrate courts or whatever it is for the trial, this LTT assistance and the money funding part is never mentioned. And because this has been used only to keep to restrict the person's liberty.
So the fact that the government seems to have left out the judicial intervention and the judicial process and left the detention orders in the hands of DIGs, isn't that also an indicator that the government is actually fear the balance of the police?
No, for us it is this. No, for now this our administrative structure has made on three elements. No, executive, the parliament, and the judicial. Then when the matters end for a certain period, now because there are checks and balances out from these three elements. But in this process, under this gazetted Anti-Terrorist Act, they have totally forgot about this judicial. And executive is handling everything. There is no element to correct this process. There is no element to intervene and say that this executive action is wrong. And they can do for keeping the person. Now you see this classic example is the lawyer Mr. Hizbullah's issue. Then he has been arrested for certain offences and kept for under detention for such a long period. And at the very first instance where he produced before the magistrate, the court granted the bail. And our main issue, our main concern is this, because any any arm, either executive or the judicial or the parliament, should not give the excess power, because that is the main problem for all our issues.
Thank you very much, DIG, Senior DIG, retired Priyantha Jayakody. It's now time for a little peek at this evening's headline news from the News First Primetime News team. We'll see you on the other side with Senior DIG Priyantha Jayakody.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
International Labour Day celebrations in Kandy and Colombo. President extends invitation to work together as the SJB also accepts an open economy policy. No alliances with those who ruin the country, SJB responds. JVP's Lal Kanta calls for a joint struggle. You will achieve nothing if you try to achieve power through undemocratic means, says former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. No alliance unless under a leadership of the SLFP, says former President Sirisena. Ceylon Mercantile Union reveals true nature of the country's challenges.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
And welcome back to Newsline recording with Senior DIG, retired Priyantha Jayakody. Mr. DIG Jayakody, tell me, you know, you were talking about the independence of each of the three different arms of, you know, the executive,
Component,
the judiciary,
yes.
the component, and the legislature.
Yes.
So you have all those three. But then, along with this untrammeled power that the president enjoys,
Yes.
Including freedom of being prosecuted whilst he is the president, in that ambience of untrammeled power, what do you have to say about the attempt that the legislature was attempting to bring in members of the judiciary to question them?
Yes, this is very unusual standard, unusual environment, because for us, when you are comparing this development, these countries where the constitution is in progress, because there are checks and balances of these three elements, and especially the judicial element, a component, have to correct the if there anything doing wrong by the executive or the legislator. The legislator is always thinking we are the lawmakers, we are having all the powers to make law, and law cannot interfere. That's a separate question. But because all these three components have to act in very mutual way. Now, that is why all these unnecessary situation arose, because each and everyone have to respect their rights, each and everyone have to respect their act. If it's happened in the very proper way, there won't be such a situation could be arose.
Right. Okay. Sorry, the mic came off. Anyway, but Senior DIG, how do we achieve a balanced situation so that the ordinary members of the public need not fear this anti-terrorism bill? After all, those who should fear it are those amongst society who are thinking of being terrorists.
Yes. Now, when because I have noticed since so many instances where Mr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, the Minister of Justice, he described this new Gazette Act, new bill gazetted, the good face of the new bill, because we can't forget that there are a couple of good things also.
Which
because
are what?
Under Prevention of Terrorist Act,
Yeah.
there were not the legal assistance were not allowed for the intervention at the very first instance. Now this new gazetted act, the lawyers can be interfere at the very first instance. The best thing is, what I feel is this, the confession recording under the PTA, the confession recorded by a police officer above the rank of ASP could be admissible in the court of law as a confession, and this part has removed. That's all correct. That we are really respect for these issues. But apart from this, he is forgotten, or he is purposely did it and purposely avoid to talk about the bad part of this new act. During this, even last couple of days back, the Bar Association had issued a very strong statement. They appointed the legal expertise committee to probe into this bill, and they mentioned in their report the 17 sections. For us, don't forget that 17 section of this gazetted bill is not consistent with the human rights laws of the country and the people's right and the people's judicial right of this country, because we can't forget that, because that committee consists of very high level legal expertise.
So 17 points are at odds with the Constitution.
Yes, not only the Constitution, it's not tallying with the judicial system of this country, and they given a very lengthy report about this, and not only the Bar Association, so Human Rights Watch, so many organizations, and especially they are very much concerned about the Article 14 of the Constitution, the freedom of movement and the freedom of speech. Now, after this bill passed, if this bill passed, and you and me won't be able to discuss these things at this level, because it too can be described as the act of terrorism, because, and it has given a very wide power to the executive president, because he can impose curfew, and he can proscribe any political party or the trade union action, trade union group, and he can disclose any particular area as a prohibited area, not to step to the ordinary people,
which they've done now.
Yeah, because these are not consistent with our the human rights in the Constitution. Because at the basic of our human rights section of this Constitution, these are very much adhering to those.
So basically, at the end of the day, Senior DIG Priyantha Jayakody, what if we were to say that this government have actually used the PTA not to control terrorism in the last year or so, but actually to control the free thinking of the people of Sri Lanka?
That's happened, because that's why all these people were against this, because they are in that section 3 of this new bill, there are some acts have been described as the Terrorism Act, because as I said earlier, the serious assault, extortion, or those type of crimes also described as a terrorist act. If you want, you can introduce it as a terrorist act, and the Deputy Inspector General of Police can be detained you for 90 days without any judicial intervention. This is the most dangerous part of this act, and I really respect, because we heard that the Honorable Minister of Justice has announced that he withdraw the bill, and it will give to the very wide, open to the very wide discussion of the people and the organization. That should happen, because.
But that would mean that we are going back to the PTA, surely. Isn't that what it means?
No, for us, even PTA, there are like now what according to the Minister of Justice, there are certain sections, it is very inhuman. Because certain things have to be, because today we are living in the very modern world, because people are talking about their rights.
What makes a man or woman derive pleasure from the suffering inflicted upon its people. What makes that kind of a person?
That means...
I mean, surely these politicians, when they bring in such draconian laws, and they really are draconian, they're taking Sri Lanka into, from a modern world into even before the Victorian age.
Yeah,
so what possesses these
actually
people?
For us, the basic of the human rights, there won't be any law to safeguard the human rights. The human right is, when you are being as a human being, it's automatically adhering to your life.
Yeah.
The law need, because of the state is always trying to curtail the right of the people, right of the man. Because the law, the human right law need, the need of the human right law is for this curtailing, to control this curtailing.
When Hijaz Hizbullah was held for, what, 18 months or more, surely those people questioning him, the people who made the decision above the police to have him arrested and so on, surely they must have had some modicum of understanding as to the suffering inflicted upon this young man and his family.
Yes, because that is why now the people are very much talking about the freedom. Yeah. Because freedom is the most valuable thing under the sun. Because you need law that is to have the good life and not to restrain the right of the people. Not to limit the right of the people. That is the basic. Because in the under this modern law concept, this have to be adopted. Because under this the new act, whatever it is, the gazetted bill, there are so many, according to this by association, the 17 sections are not consistent with our judicial system or the constitution. Because all these things must be very widely open to the people to discuss. People to see, even the constitution, even the laws come. That is why most of these developed countries, they allow this to be discussed for a long process, and they make the law. And without discussing under the room, getting with the now during even some TV discussions, in the electronic media discussion, I have noticed that still they have not disclosed the name of the people who may have participated for drafting this bill. It may be military officers, it may be police officers, it may be social activities, whoever it is. And even the discussion held in even your channel, I think Mr. Salia Piris asked from the minister to produce those notes of the committee, because these should be very openly, this should be open to the public and to the people.
To all the people.
Yeah, to all the people. People should know who made the law, under what circumstances, and they have to explain. They should be come up and explain this was introduced because of this system. Because these things was never disclosed to the people. That is the main issue of this new enactment.
And as Sri Lanka tries to emerge from its economic mess, the mismanaged economy, tries to increase the tax collection and so on, in your experience and from the intelligence that you may have, do you think that this matter of the Anti-Terrorism Bill is deeply worrying, so much to be a vote changer?
Yes. Now, for us, when you are going through this act and the way it produced and the time it produced, and it gives the separate idea on this issue, because under this economical crisis in the next couple of months or next couple of years may be very crucial to Sri Lanka, and under these circumstances the executive need more power, because when the people are not agreeing with some decision of the rulers, this automatically they should come up. And even after this Golface Aragale, they have learned a lot of lessons. There's a very famous Sinhala Kiyamana says that the Kalamediriyagen Batakapu Miniha Ginipenellata Ginipenellen Batakapu Miniha Kalamediriyatat by. And they were that I think this is what they were very much scared about the things happened a couple of months back. But I think that is the secret behind this new section to introduce, new law to be introduced to suppress the people's voice. And it should never happen in this country for the betterment of the people.
SDIG Priyantha Jayakody, thank you very much for having been on Newsline recording. And that's the way it was. It's now time for the prime time news. Take care. Have a great week ahead of you, of course. And God bless you all.